Welcome to the Nordic Mythology podcast. I'm Daniel Farron, owner of the company Hornsvoden, and I'm joined, as always, by Dr. Matthias Nordvig.
Hello, everybody. Today we have a very special guest. We have Maria Franz from the very awesome band Heilung. You may know her as the iconic shamanic figure that we see on stage. Very welcome, Maria. Thanks for joining us again.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. I love your show, and I'm really cool to very pleased to be invited back in a solo edition. I was guesting with my two lovely bandmates, and now I have you all to myself.
Yeah,
that's it. Yeah, that was a fun episode. We had a lot of laughs. If you are only listening to this one and haven't listened to the episode with all three members of Heilung, then please go back and listen to it because it was hilarious. It was really, really good fun. You guys made us laugh a lot.
We do that a lot by ourselves as well. It's I think it's the combination of being, I don't know, we just weirded out by each other sometimes, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's Kai is he's such a weird person, and I love him a lot. He's also really, really weird. Like if it's something he doesn't like, he will do it a lot just to kind of force him. Like with coriander, he hates coriander. So if it's coriander on the table, he would just take a huge bite and just yeah. Yeah, it makes me laugh a lot.
I mean, that's a good way to get over your fears, I think.
Yeah.
Or at least try to.
Yeah, I guess that's the point of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have an amazing chemistry. Obviously, are you and Christopher a couple? And then, okay,
yeah.
I did think that, but I didn't want to. I wasn't 100% sure.
Yeah, no, this is the hour where you can ask me anything, Daniel. That's good. And it's Chris and me is a couple now for 15 years.
Wow.
And we've been in several groups and several bands with other couples and seen how it works. And sometimes it works really well, and sometimes you have to fight a bit for it, to kind of remind yourselves that you're colleagues first and then a couple. But with Chris, we started out working with music together, so it was never a hard transition or never an issue about how to act with each other. We find it very easy, and of course it's a super luxury when you're on long tours and we're always together and we can share this adventure.
Absolutely. I mean, you must have your moments where you bicker, because me and Sarah have been together probably a similar sort of time, 15-16 years, and we obviously run the business together and we bicker sometimes. Obviously we love each other, but sometimes it's pretty close to hate. You know, they do say that the love and hate are close, and especially when you work together, it's so intense. And I imagine music is a very intense thing anyway, so I guess sometimes you must.
Yeah, it is super intense, and I think the long hours and but during the years you kind of learn what kind of signals to be scared of. Like if I'm hungry, I'm not really pleasant to be around. I get really angry.
Yeah.
So it's like if I start to seem annoyed, then Chris is like, "Did you eat?" Then
that's always a good one. That's always a good way to calm Sarah down as well, is to feed her.
Yeah, just
almost like a gremlin.
You always have a Snickers bar around, right?
Yeah, those terrible Snickers adverts that they were. So, as Matthias mentioned before, you are obviously the very iconic shamanic kind of headdress, which I think has become almost the face of Heilung. You know, as soon as you Google Heilung, that's what you see, and it's very much, I guess, what people put on the posters. Was that the intention for you to become this kind of figurehead almost, or did it happen by accident? And do you enjoy it as well, being very much the front?
Yeah, it's funny. It was never the intention. It was the three of us when we started, and we asked good musicians to join. And I always thought that Kai would be the centerpiece because he had most of the vocal parts, and Chris and me would kind of back him in it.
Mm-hmm.
But then we did. Sorry, that was just Chris coming by. Hey, Chris. I'm sitting in his studio because he's working with Finn, our sound engineer, in Finn's studio, which is next door. So I'm kind of claiming his space, but I think, yeah, he just wanted to say hi. So that's cool. So yes, and then I created my outfit out of really deep wanting to. I had just had this vision, and I just started working on it, and it just took shape without me almost thinking about it. And when it was done, it kind of went very organically how things went from there. It was never planned how we would position ourselves on stage or how the others should look. We just agreed that we would try to kind of dig up our roots and what felt familiar to us. So I used the Viking dress I've had for 15 years on Viking markets before. It still has, some spots of red wine from late evenings and some mud on the hem from walking in the woods, and and all this together kind of made the looks of it, and now it's I'm kind of embracing it as it became a symbol more than me in a way. I think that you have to look at it as a bit on a distance, because now there's a lot of people that get tattooed, get my face tattooed on their body, which is beautiful, and also, it's weird if I start to stop up to think about it. It's
That must be absolutely surreal. I can't wait until the podcast gets big enough where somebody gets my face tattooed on them, because that will make my day. It would be really creepy, but I would be so happy. I'd be smiling inside.
Yeah,
that is not a challenge. Don't, please, nobody listening to this, just go and do that. Secretly go and do that.
Yeah.
But do. No, but actually really don't. That would be, I can't help myself now. I'm just stuck in this spiral of do's and don'ts. But no, that must be super strange when you see somebody with your face tattooed on. But also, I guess, whilst it is your face, it's also not just your face, if that makes sense. You've got obviously the headdress on, which covers your eyes in most instances. So are you able to kind of separate it in that way?
Yeah, because this is it's a big part of me. It is me on stage with this attire, but it's also a creation born out of this project. So it is very, very easy for me to separate it as being two entities, part of the same. And it's hard to explain it. I can't really explain it for myself either, but it feels natural. And it feels like I've been working my entire life to get to this point where I'm standing there on stage looking like this. It's weird because I'm wearing stuff that I've been collecting my entire life. Little beads that I made when I was 11 on my first Viking market, and it's just weird. I've been dragging this stuff along my entire life, and all of a sudden we create Heilung, and I get to use everything, and they become a part of it.
No, I think that's so beautiful that everything is very much organic. It's not stuff you've gone and bought from a shop, or you've kind of pre-planned it and made these elaborate outfits. You've literally, I imagine, just looked at what you've got and gone, all right, this is going to look kind of cool. Let's just throw it all together and see what happens.
Yeah, and I think you have to have your heart in it in that matter. And precisely like you say, go for stuff that you find cool and interesting, and that you feel at home with yourself, because art is best when it comes from the heart, right? The same with cooking a meal. If you don't really feel it, it will not taste good. And it's the same with music. If you try to pretend that you are somebody else, then it will shine through, I think.
I very much agree with that.
Yeah.
So you've been mentioning your experiences at the Viking markets. Let's talk a little bit more about that. The whole when did you get into Viking reenactment?
Yeah, well, so I grew up in Borre in Norway, which has one of the biggest gatherings of burial mounds from the Viking Age, like 5 minutes from my house. And that was a very favored playground for us when we were kids. And we always knew that the kings and queens were buried under there. And it was material for a lot of fairy tales that we made up ourselves about who they were and how they looked like and what they were doing. And then they created a Viking lag, a group with a focus on showing the history from the Viking Age, and they started doing markets on this spot. And the first one was when I was 11. And my mom and me went there as visitors, and I think actually I cried a little bit when I entered the market space because it just I felt really, really home. And there was something about the smell of fireplace and the clang from the smithy and the swords clanging in the even farther ahead and somebody singing and flute playing. There was this whole imagery of sounds and smells, and it just felt completely magical and like a fairy tale, like I stepped into some story. And
I mean, for a child, that's such an amazing thing that you have such a vivid imagination.
Yeah.
Anyway, as a child, so then when you go and it's recreated there, and like you say, you get the sounds, the smells. It will be as though you were there. You're able to kind of put yourself in that position, which has clearly had such a long-lasting effect to today into what you do, and it's channeled all the way through your life.
Exactly. And some part of me believed that there was a premonition. Is that the right? Like I could, if I could glimpse the future, I would. That maybe might have been why I felt it so strongly. And I also really, I was really pulling my mom, like, let's do this, let's join. Can we just be like them? And we started, and she also really wanted to. So the two of us started making our own clothes out of, sheets from the bed and whatever we could find lying around the house. We looked really, really, really sad the first year, as everyone do when they start something new. But we had so much fun with it, and we instantly connected with a lot of people and got a lot of friends. And I think that's also an important part of these reenactment environments, that it's easy to, as soon as you get into it, it's easy to find new friendships from all over the world.
Absolutely. I think it's important that your mum was so welcoming to it and helped you, and it was this thing that you did together, because so many parents, I think, can be quite dismissive of things that children want to do, especially, I mean, I don't know what the kind of stigma around like reenactment is in Norway, but I know in the UK some parents might be a little bit shy to it, maybe thinking it's not for them, or it's a little bit nerdy, I guess, that kind of image. So some parents may shy away from it and not want to do it, even though the children want to, because they don't want to be seen in this world. So it's good to have like your mum that was so keen to do it, something you do together, and then it moves on. Because I think parents should just do, if the child want to do something, definitely do it together and make it fun, and then it has such a positive, lasting effect.
Yeah, and this was in '96, I think. So it wasn't. People didn't really know what it was yet. The Viking reenactment scene came kind of late to Norway. It was earlier in Denmark, so I think people didn't have the same stigma on it being a nerdy or a weird thing to do. I mean, now it became cool again, but for a while it was not cool to be a Viking.
That's what I was wondering, is to people who are on the outside of like this community, just your average Joe, looking in on people who dress up in, or like, reenact like the past and have these axes and swords and the dress, and they can be quite judgmental, I guess, to it. And I wondered whether that was maybe different in Norway, with it being more directly kind of the history of those people than maybe would be in America, where people may be a little bit more judgmental because it's not the direct route? Or is it the same in the Scandinavian countries where people can still be a bit dickish towards people who decide to do this?
I feel like, over the years, I mean, because I have had, sort of a similar relationship to the reenactment community as you, Maria, except I've probably been a little more peripheral. My mom was, doing reenactment for several years, starting in the late 90s and then through the early 2000s. I've been part of it here and there, but not as active. And I feel like you definitely get people who, like, that's some really weird, nerdy shit right there. Like, why would you want to do that? And it's like, why would I want to spend my time in nature, sleeping in a tent and bathing in the ocean in the summertime? Yeah, that sounds weird, right? Like, or learning some kind of craft. Yeah, I'm such a geek. Like, if you ask me, like, this is probably one of the most wholesome, free time leisure activities that you can do, because you have, like, you interact with so many different people from, as you said, Maria, from all over the world. There are so many people who come to, like, Viking markets from Poland, from Italy, from Russia, from all kinds of places, right? So you get to interact with so many different people. You get to, you have the possibility of learning pretty much any kind of craft, right? That's at least associated with the Viking Age. And then aside from that, the parties are fucking awesome.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, you do have, like, that there's that group of people in every country, I feel like, who's like, why would you want to do that? That's just, like, weirdly nerdy. So,
well, it depends also how many of your friends are doing the same, because I know for Chris, in growing up in Copenhagen, having no one else doing it in his friend circle, that was definitely not cool. He had to kind of just own it and just be like, oh, it's cool because I say so, kind of thing. But for me, I had most of my close friends were into it, and also when I got a little older and doing a live role-playing game in the Oslo environment, where there's so many awesome people, totally respecting every kind of weird choice you would take of things to do in your spare time. So yeah, I think if you're the only one in your school or workplace or anything, of course it's lonely, but
yeah, no, that's I had a similar experience as Chris, I think, because, like, living in Aarhus, which is the second largest town in Denmark, everybody is doing whatever they can to be very hip and metropolitan, right? Especially because Copenhagen is the hip metropolitan place, so
that's quite even harder.
Yeah, you have a lot of provincial shit you have to make up for. But on the other hand, like, Aarhus has the largest and oldest Viking market, right? Like Moskva, which is huge, and I think it's actually the oldest one. If I remember correctly, it was started. So the recreation, so the reenactment part of it all, like, doing experimental archaeology and recreating things, I think stems all the way from the 70s as, like, a thing that people have been doing. And then the Viking market as such, like public Viking market, I think comes around in the early 90s, maybe late 80s. I can't remember exactly. There was, like, a smiths coming together and, like, trying to, like, work on Viking Age smithy stuff from a very early time. That was, like, one of the first things that happened there. So yeah, but that's, like, that the Moskva area south of Aarhus is very similar to Bora, in the sense that I mean, it's not kings or anything cool like that. Actually, all of the mounds that you find there, they are reconstructed. They are taken from other places and then have been put there. but it's sort of like a historical space that has been created for like the experience of basically 10,000 years of Denmark. So they're like they planted forests as they would have been back like just after the Ice Age and that kind of stuff. So that's always been sort of like a great experience to go there and sort of interact with history in different ways and get a feel for what would a, like for instance, a Viking Age environment look like with the little stave church that they have and, you know, all that stuff. So that's always been really awesome there.
Yeah. Cool. Oh, that's great. It sounds like a lovely place to grow up.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
I think the internet must, especially Facebook, must have really brought new life into this kind of stuff, for good and for bad, maybe. But I think at least letting like-minded people meet each other, because I imagine pre-Facebook, if you were into this kind of stuff, how would you meet other people other than if your parents were willing to take you to a market and you knew that it was on? Then you could obviously then maybe meet people, speak to people. But now you can just, with the click of a button, you can join a group and speak to people who are also interested in the same thing, and then kind of navigate how to do it, and then at least talk with people who like it. And it's not as scary, I guess, in the sense of that maybe people will judge you or laugh at you or whatever. It's a little bit more safe is not the right word, but I guess easier to connect.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's also some bad sides to it, I guess, as well, though. We've spoke about the Facebook groups on this podcast quite often, and some of them are a little bit odd.
Okay. Yeah. I guess it does get watered out. Is maybe not the right word, but it's the same as, I mean, if one person tells a story and then the other person retells it and they retells it and retells it, it will become a different story. And I feel that's a bit also what's happening with the reenactment scene, that more and more stuff is gets to be allowed in the way of how you make the dresses and because you saw someone wearing something that you also want, so you make it and then somebody else see it. And in the end, it's not based on any archaeological findings whatsoever. No. And it gets the original idea gets lost a little bit. But at the same time, I'm not going to be annoyed by that, because I also see so many people having such a wonderful time out in nature, sitting around the fireplace, looking at each other and listening to each other instead of looking into a phone or a screen. And absolutely. I think such high values in our modern time and age. So more of it, I would say. And if you really want a really authentic market, then do that. Make one and say, okay, we do this for real. We hire archaeologists to do their work in helping with how it should be arranged, and then say that this is an authentic market. If you want to see something which are true to our findings, go here. If you want an experience with your family and kids where they can eat candy and jump on a Viking carousel, then there's tons of stuff for them as well.
There's no reason why both can't coexist together. And I think it's easier to turn somebody in the right direction that's already interested in it, but maybe didn't make it 100% authentic, and then turn them into a more authentic side if they wanted to, rather than trying to start it from absolute fresh from somebody who's not got any sort of interest in or basis in it. So absolutely. And you don't want to shun them away either, because if people have a negative experience straight away, like me trolling them on Facebook, they might just disappear and not come back.
Do you do that?
No, sometimes. The one that gets me is the face paint. The war paint one is the one that I struggle to understand why people do that one.
Tell me about your rage regarding this.
I wouldn't call it a rage. I don't understand where it comes from, and it's more like, because I understand it in say like a Heilung perspective where you're on stage and it's very much a show, but then there seems to be these subsect of people that sit at home in their living room and draw runes on their face with mascara and then pout and take a selfie and are like, what do you think about my war paint? It's like, what? Like, you're not going to war, and how? Like, that. I guess that was the other thing, which is why I wanted to ask Matthias was: is there any evidence like that? That's what they did.
So
where did this heavy like black? Because I guess you also see with like this the Scots in Braveheart where they get like the blue war paint.
So these are actually, and this is where you're gonna get really frustrated because
you're gonna tell me that they're accurate.
Well, they are based on historical accounts.
I knew it was coming.
So with the Scottish and the blue and all that stuff, like that goes all the way back to Roman times, where different Roman historians are describing how the Picts up in what is now Scotland, right? Are like in different ways color their skin. Some of this has been interpreted as tattoos, which is also very likely. And so that's like a stable description of people in the British Isles already from around the year 0, even before, I think. So that's a thing. And this also, we see some Tacitus, the Roman historian who describes the Germanic peoples on the other side of the Rhine, he does seem to indicate that some of them are coloring themselves in different ways. This is also where Heilung got the whole the darkened warriors from, right? I think that's the description of the Chatti, if I remember correctly.
Exactly, the Hadi.
The Hadi, yes.
Yeah.
And he also mentions that a tribe called he calls them the Aisti, as far as I remember. They might like be tattooing boars on themselves or something like that. So there's like these indications that there's like some coloring going on. It might not be tattoos. We can't say for sure. It could also be just like paint, but. Then what we get later on from the Viking Age is the emissary from the Caliphate in Cordoba. So that's Muslim Spain at the time. What is his name? Yaqub al-Tatushi. He is a Jewish emissary for the Caliphate. He's sent to the court in what is now Germany. What is it Louis the Pious or is it Otto? I can't remember. One of those German emperors during the Viking Age, and he takes sort of like a trip to Scandinavia. He visits Hedeby in southern Denmark, where he describes that they paint their eyes dark. And he doesn't really give any details on what they're using or anything like or what it's for. I think he says that it's to make them more beautiful. That's the reasoning. Now the thing is that this is a very standard thing pre-Christianity and pre-Islam in the Mediterranean. I mean, go back to the Egyptians, right? How is an Egyptian from that time period represented? It's always like with some eye paint, right? So, and this is like, of course, a fashion, a culture that exists throughout North Africa, for instance. This is something that the Muslims very strongly associate with paganism. For instance, the non-Muslim Berber in the Atlas Mountains would still be using that paint around their eyes, and so on. So there is something that in this account that might actually there are scholars who have suggested, he's just basically saying this because these are pagans, right? In Scandinavia at the time, so maybe they didn't use any paint at all, or he's just like copying what he knows about like representations of pagans in other Muslim literature. But on the other hand, it's also very, very likely that they use this kind of eye paint. It's also very, very likely that they've been using, like at the time when he's describing this, that they've been using eye paint in Northern Europe since the Romans showed up in the first couple of centuries, at least, because they probably used it, and so on and so on. So I think it's a very likely scenario that they did have some kind of like mascara that they were using, and
painting runes in their face.
So the rune thing, that's another thing.
Okay.
That if you ask me, is probably going a little too far.
Come on, save me, Matthias, because otherwise I've got so many people to apologize to.
So no, I like this whole thing is, I've seen the people that you're talking about, and that, you know, face paint with like runes everywhere and all that stuff. I doubt that was a thing. Like, at least in the way that you see it there. You could always discuss, first of all, you could discuss whether or not they were tattooing, for instance. It's not impossible that they did. I mean, hitherto the oldest archaeological find of a tattooed person, right?
Ötzi.
From Austria. Yeah, Ötzi. For 5,000 years old or more. They just recently found tattooing tools in Tennessee that are older. So North American tattooing traditions. But just think about it, right? If you have a tattooing tradition in the Bronze Age in Europe, it's very likely you also have tattooing traditions later on in the Iron Age and so on. And as far as we know historically, it's really only Islam that has been very staunchly against tattooing. Christianity is sort of like back and forth on that issue. Sometimes you see an accepting attitude to it, and other times you see a pope cracking down on it. It's first in the 1200s, as far as I remember, that you see the pope really getting like no tattoos, right? If you go back to the 700s in northern England, there's a distinction between Christian tattoos and pagan tattoos. So that's just something to keep in mind. Yeah. So it's a little sort of that issue in and of itself is a little iffy, right?
What about the Pictish people of Britain? Didn't they have tattoos?
Well, that's
later, of course.
That's what we assume, based off of Roman descriptions. There are several Roman historians that talk about the Picts coloring themselves. The problem is that the terminology is so vague. Right? We know that the Romans didn't really appreciate tattoos because it was associated with slaves. Slaves would get
yes.
And also that would also be the same for the Hellenic Greeks. But then you have the Thracians who very much tattooed. Like, we know that the Thracians tattooed, and that was sort of like a cultural war between the Hellenic Greeks and the Thracians up north, right? So it's like very likely that a guy like Alexander the Great was tattooed, by the way. Just FYI.
Yeah.
I guess a tattoo is a good way to differentiate between a slave and a free person, I guess.
Yeah, see, this is the interesting thing, because then there are some scholars who have suggested that the original stigmata in context of Christianity was actually tattoos. Because a lot of like early converts would be slaves. So there's
that's a popular thing in Japan, isn't it? I think is it prisoners that they have like the armband.
So
like the thick bands that go around, they tend to be.
As far as I understand about like tattoos in Japan, the traditional tattoos is that originally you'd get tattooed for various crimes, so that you get like I guess like a text that says this asshole is a robber or something like that, right? And then people would like, you know, get tattooed over, like to cover up that kind of stuff. So, and that's how that really awesome tattooing tradition in Japan came about.
Yeah, I mean,
it's fucking great.
Yeah,
it is still, because they are. I know we're talking about a completely different culture than what we're meant to be, but even in Japan, it's still quite a big stigma on tattoos today. You're not meant to show them in public, are you? I know I mean, I'd be fucked. I don't know.
Yeah.
You'd have
Well,
to
I think
wear a burqa, basically.
Yeah,
I
pretty
think
much.
I think they're a little forgiving for gaijins like you and me. But yeah, no, it all of like Eastern Asia or many places in Eastern Asia, like China, for instance, it's a big stigma with the tattoos. Of course, you have Taiwan. Seems like there's a pretty liberal culture there when it comes to tattooing. The same with South Korea. And then you have like Thailand as another place, Bali, right? But yeah, there's a lot of places where it's distinctly associated with criminals, which isn't that far from the European imagination about tattoos too.
It's crazy, really, because when you think of like tattoos, like Japanese style tattoos have to be one of the top, or at least the most popular that you get, and for it to be seen so negatively in Japan, but they do it so well. It's it's insane. It's kind of an oxymoron.
Yeah. No,
I don't know if I used that right. I think I did.
It's at least a paradox.
Yeah, I almost got there. So, Maria, you said before that you were into LARPing at some point.
Yeah, that is started when I was around 15, I think, because some people in the Viking environment that I became friends with were also doing LARPing, and I fell in love with a couple of them, and you know how it goes. I kind of got invited along for a few games, and I absolutely loved it. I never felt like I was a big actor, and I was always very admiring the people who did the large part of the acting. And I think one of the best things one of them said to me is that the whole point of LARPing is that you play other people up. Like, you shouldn't try to be you can't be a king unless everyone around you treats you like a king. So that's kind of a good I felt I had a good upbringing amongst some really, really talented and skilled people. And I learned some really cool survival skills through LARPing in Norway, because I was invited to become to play a lieutenant for a small hiring company of mercenaries in a fantasy world. And these guys were all either in the military or ex-military in real life. So it was just tiny me and then 5-6 big military guys, and we were hiking around in the forest for quite some time. And it was extremely educational in everything from sleeping outside in the middle of the forest to how much food do you carry, to where do you find water, how do you lit a fire in rain. Also, one of the games, it started snowing the day before we were to go out. And when we started walking into the forest, it just got worse and worse and worse. And in the end, the guys had like snow up to their chest, really just having to make way so I could kind of I would not have managed there at all without their help. And then when we came to the campsite, which they put up a couple of weeks before, the snow had, of course, buried the lavos, the teepee structures. Yeah. So there was one standing, so we kind of crammed in there. In the morning after, we decided to cancel the rest of the game because it was simply too cold and wet, and but yeah, LARPing makes for really, really good adventures that kind of also helps to prepare you for real life scenarios. I discovered, and I had many years of great pleasure doing that. Now I hear that LARPing has changed quite a bit. Many places, like for instance, there's in Holland, you can go to they have cafes where you can buy your food. You don't have to make your own food in-game and stuff like that. And I'm just used to having to do everything ourselves. So yeah. Do you guys have any LARPing backgrounds?
No, I've I don't think it was that big in England until very recently, or at least I never knew of it as a child. I think my first ever introduction to LARPing was the movie Role Models. I think that was the first time I ever saw I saw up and like I don't know if it was just me that lived a sheltered life or it just wasn't that big over here. I'm not sure.
No. And I think that in Denmark, it was pretty looked down upon, like something that only kids were doing. At least that's my impression.
Yeah, yes and no, I think. Like, so I feel like it became sort of like a thing that was like big in schools and after school programs and that kind of stuff, sort of like in the early 2000s. And it's sort of, I mean, yeah, the grown-ups, so judging from like popular fictions of various kinds, like, you know, TV shows and stuff like that from Denmark, grown-ups who do it are like the goofy geeks, right? That's how it's represented. But
that's the way it's always kind of portrayed, I think, as well. Like that's, or at least the way it was.
Yeah,
I think it's changing a little bit.
I've known a lot of people who've done LARPing. Not myself ever, really. But yeah, no, a lot of people that I know have been doing it. So
I think also coming from the Norwegian environment to Denmark was a bit of a shock, and I stopped LARPing after moving to Denmark because I realized that at least the stuff I could find when I moved here 15 years ago was basically only fantasy LARPing. Mm-hmm. And in Norway, the environment there had moved on to make some really, really far out diving deep into psychology things that was really groundbreaking in many ways, and also doing stuff like horror LARPing. The most amazing was I could
get into that one.
Yeah, imagine a cabin deep into the woods which was installed with like 60 different speakers, and a friend of mine were actually sitting in a little sound room during the whole weekend and just controlling footsteps following you when you go to the toilet in the dark. We had
this sounds like a movie.
It was so
that's some very advanced stuff. Wow. Yeah.
I would enjoy that though, I think. I have this I love the idea of like seeing how far I can be pushed before like I crack, I guess, like the survival type horror stuff. I really enjoy that, like the haunted houses and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and imagine living in it in 3 days, being in the character, and at some point everyone just broke character simultaneously because there was just children screaming under everyone's beds. Everyone was freaking so much out that we just huddled together in the one big room that was in the cabin and just like it was super scary, and I will never forget it, and I still owe a lot of thanks to the people arranging it because they worked so hard for everyone else to be freaked out.
That sounds so cool.
it really does, but it also sounds like someone's filming it and making a horror movie and secretly people are actually dying.
Not a bad idea.
I'm sure there is already movies that exist like that. There has to be.
So there is the Danish concept of Dogma, Dogma 95, which is like this minimalist way of making movies. Lars von Trier is like the big dude behind all of that. And there was like a couple of films that were made in like the late 90s where it was very like it was very raw. There's like especially one called The Idiots, where like it features actual porn scenes and stuff like that, because the whole idea was that everything had to be real. Like so at least not with horror, but I guess with porn. there's been a couple of movies like that.
We always have to go there.
I guess so. Like
you're always bringing the tone down, aren't you? if it's not a dictionary, then it's...
So this director, the directors that have been making those movies are some of the most respectable directors in Denmark. Mm-hmm. I guess it says more about Denmark than anything.
But I think probably yes. It does. No, there's a couple of
the New Yorkers of the North. Like everything is just a little bit more out there in Denmark.
Wait, you call us the New Yorkers of The North.
of the North. Yeah.
Oh wow, here we go.
But New York is so vanilla. Like, you should call us the San Francisco.
For Norwegians, New Yorkers are the shit, man. It's
Oh, of
super
course,
exciting.
of course. Well, I guess that it's a badge of honor to be called a New Yorker. So
If we've learned nothing else this episode, then that's one thing.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm gonna use that as a handle now. I'm the New
Yeah,
Yorker
dude.
of the North.
I'm Danish. I like
So, I know of one. There's one somewhere near me that's like it's like a survival horror experience, and I think you have to. I looked into it a little bit, and then Sarah told me I wasn't allowed to do it, so I didn't do it. But this one you apply for it, and then they do a psychological profiling of you through your social media for like 6 months prior, and then you wait by a lay-by if you get to like sign up for it, and they come by, pick you up, like throw you in the back of like one of the old army jeeps, and I guess it's the idea. I think there's like 12 people, and there's an idea of like it's different rounds, and whoever like cracks first in each round until there's one person left at the end.
Wow.
I'm sure it's called Cracked. I imagine you have to sign some sort of disclaimer to it, but that's very much more like a horror. Someone said in the chat, I don't think you pay for it. I think it's free. I don't think they care about the money, but it's almost like, I think there's one in the US called Makami Manor, which is very much similar. It's very much like as real horror scenario as you can get. But I find that really interesting. And same with like the SAS Who Dares Wins program, the show on Channel 4 where you go through the selection process. I find that really kind of like the idea of how far you can be pushed and the survival skills. Yeah, which I think almost sounds like what you were doing with the LARPing in the early days of being out there and having to do everything yourself, which I'd never really thought of as what LARPing would be. I guess my idea of LARPing was very much that role models idea of like the foam swords and everyone's just in a park hitting each other, and you lose a leg and hop around for a little bit, and there's a little wooden castle. Like that was, I guess, my idea. I never even thought of it as like how you said with the whole survival.
Yeah,
it's weird because I don't know if there's anything like that around here in the general Front Range area between Denver and Boulder. Like there's I haven't heard of anything. It's especially weird to me because there's a lot of like Dungeons and Dragons playing type of people around. There's a lot of hippies too, right? So like you'd think that mix of people would eventually produce some LARPing in the woods, but I guess all we get is like weird techno parties in the woods.
I mean, that's all right. D&D seems to be another one that's grown in the last few years. It seems to have just got huge.
Yeah, it got a really good revival. But I think it takes some balls to get a LARP up and standing. I mean, I know people who built a whole Western city from the ground up with everything, with a saloon and a whorehouse and everything, just so people could play LARP there for a week. And the dedication people put into costumes and developing the roles and having meetings for half a year, developing own languages that they then talk for this 1 week. And if it's a very successful game, then you would do prologues and you would continue to do it. There's one world in Norway which has been going now for at least 20 years, and there's books being written about it also because there's so much stuff there from the folklore, and it just develops. So it's just to have the skills to build something and to make your own clothes and to learn a language. So in my opinion, the LARPers, at least the ones I know in Norway, are some of the most badass people I know. Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely. It sounds almost like putting a festival on, I guess.
Yeah.
Like that kind of. But I guess if people are paying to come and take part in it, I mean, I don't know necessarily how it works, but I assume there is some sort of money to it. Then the more that people, I guess, put into it, then you do want some sort of world creating, because you're putting money into the more they can put on and make it real, the more you're going to get into it, I guess, and be absorbed by it and enjoy it, and then you're going to grow. So, it makes sense that they would put that much effort into it.
Absolutely. And I mean, now I just swapped LARPing with Heilung, I guess, which is its own little festival in itself, with 35 people and and you making your own costumes. And you're still doing it to a degree. And I know you mentioned before the chat to get back on topic as such, I guess. You guys built your own studios, is that right? Did you say that? Yeah, that's true. Right now I'm sitting in the second studio of Christopher, my partner, and one of the founders of Heilung, and we had to build this from scratch because there was simply no room that would meet Christopher's requirements, because now this is the third studio he's building. But the two before was basically just rooms which he isolated and made a window in between the rooms so you could see the recording artists and stuff like that. So now when we anyways had to start from scratch, then he was like, okay, now I want to do it properly. I want to build my dream studio and make no wall equal, so everything is angled, and the walls are super thick isolated. The floors are floating, and we just started with I think a 300 square meter empty industrial room, and now there's a 5-room sound studio in it, and we did everything
awesome.
ourselves. Yeah,
I mean, from anybody that listened to the episode with all three of you, it's very clear that Chris loves sound.
Yeah,
like that's his thing. Like some of the stuff he was talking about, he's very much into it. So I imagine that as Heilung have grown, he's been given more free rein, whether it's financially or time, that he's able to build his ideal place. And I can almost relate to that in a sense of when I started Horns of Odin, I was sanding horns on a shitty bench in my garage, and then I got a little bit more time and money. So I changed the garage into like a full workshop. And then now I'm looking at getting a big unit because I've outgrown that now, and you move it. So as you develop and grow, you get the money, I guess, and the need for something better. So it's good that he's now in a position to build, because I imagine he absolutely loved designing and building his own studio.
Absolutely. But we were talking about it today because it was Chris and me and Finn, our sound engineer, which has built his own little studio next to ours. And the three of us, I mean, we still talk about it because it was so bloody hard physically to do it, but it was one of the most amazing periods of our times anyways, because we just jumped into it. I think if we had known the amount of work and physical hard lifting labor, I would have been super scared before going into it, but we ended up just jumping into it. We knew exactly what we wanted, and wow, I don't know, man. It was how many plasterboards? Maybe 450 that we single-handedly carried up to the second floor and stuff.
Is it on the second floor as well?
Yeah. So it was really we got in super fit shape. Everyone got very buff from that 6 months of building. That's for sure.
I bet. So did you do this during the downtime of COVID, or was it something that was happening before?
No, that's the thing. This happened in 2018. So Heilung played our first gig in 17 at Midgardsbrotet Fest. And then we did, and that fall in October, we got the notification from our landlord that we had to move out from our studio and our home, which was part of the same building. And they were going to tear it down, so we had to move. So that was a bit like at the same time as Lifa exploded on YouTube, and Ofnir, we got signed by Season of Mist, and we got done everything, and everything basically exploded. We were homeless for 4 months, and we were building the studio for 6 months. So we were sitting actually in Kai's tattoo studio, doing the artwork for the vinyl productions, because we didn't have a studio or home to be in, so we just huddled in there. It was a crazy time, because it was super chaotic and hardcore physical label, and stressful psychologically as well, because we couldn't find our home. We simply couldn't find it in Copenhagen. So we started having to search wider, and then finally we found an old farmhouse on the countryside, and everything is as well as it could be now. But it was a rough time.
I imagine it was worth it. Now you've got your own studio. I mean, it must make things so much easier having your own place to record and not have to rely on others.
Yeah,
and I imagine Chris doesn't play well with others as well. I imagine he wants things his way.
How could you guess?
Well, he clearly knows what he wants. So I imagine that it's easier when he's just allowed to do it himself.
Exactly, absolutely. And before, sharing a practice space with others was not really an option for Heilung. It's of course super luxurious to have it by ourselves, so we always know where things are, and no one's stealing the mic stands and leaving empty beer cans on the table.
Do you need certain things for the type of music that you guys make?
Yeah, we do. We need a space that's big enough for the big drums for a start. And we custom make almost everything we play on. So that means space is a crucial factor. So we can kind of build up a bonophone. We made a bonophone out of plague bones from a grave in Berlin. It's good to have space for the bonophone.
Yeah. There's so many jokes that can be made there.
Yes.
I did wonder whether, because you have so many different instruments and also have so many people, I guess, involved. I assume you don't record with everybody in a studio situation, but still, if you have the opportunity to build it, I guess, would it be different to a conventional studio?
Absolutely, but you're absolutely right. With too many people to practice comfortably in no matter how big studio we would make, it would not serve the other purposes of recording if the room was so big that we all 20 of us could stand in there. So when we do practice rounds with Heilung, we rent a venue and do a full production with audio and lights and everything. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. I saw that you guys are coming back to London soon.
Yes, we are. Can't wait. Hopefully everything will go as planned now. But in the meantime, we've spent the time wisely, both creating new Heilung music, and right now, as we speak, the final mastering is going on next door for the new Usein album, which is Chris and me have this other project called Usein, which is more filmic. How to describe it? It's always hard to describe your own stuff, but this album has been 6 years on its way because moving studio and then Heilung exploding and everything. So we're very happy that we had this downtime to finish it.
Awesome! I'm looking forward to that.
Good. You know it, the project?
No, I not as such. I just think that it sounds really interesting, and I'm definitely going to give it a listen as soon as I can.
Yeah, go for it. It's our playground where we use our imagination from all kinds of genres. So we're not locked into the Nordic scene or the pop or the rock or the electronic, but it is, of course, we bring ourselves in it. So some folk elements will be there, and
nice.
We had a amazing time finishing the recordings now the past months, and I can't wait for it to be finished and get out there at some point. But there's lots of stuff on YouTube if you're curious.
I'll definitely check it out.
Yeah, how do you find time to juggle both? or do you ever get tripped up and get them
Well,
confused?
no, it's pretty easy because I mean, we sing in English and we work with more modern elements. Heilung has this dogma that we only play on things that we create ourselves or which have this nature kind of bound sound. And then we also have Song Like It, which is a completely acoustic Nordic folk music project with 2 female singers and some instrumentations. So I find it extremely satisfying to work with these 3 different projects, because then it's like all my different sides can get out in them. So yeah, I love it.
Yeah, no, good. Yeah, I can't wait for you guys to come to London. I'm definitely gonna make the travel down and come and see.
Yeah, you should do it.
Absolutely. No, I definitely will. Will that be the first show that you do, or have you got one?
No, we have Red Rocks close to Matthias's place in October.
Oh, I imagine that you're excited.
Oh, very much indeed. And we were laughing about it, like, haha, wouldn't it be fun if we went from 1.5 year of break and then directly to Red Rock with 10,000 audiences? And now it's happening.
That is exactly what is happening. I mean, for those who aren't familiar with Red Rocks, this is like a legendary venue. It is an outdoors amphitheater. In the rocks by the foothills outside of Denver, and like pretty much every huge rock star has been through there. Back in the 70s, you know, all the big ones had huge, I'm sure, coke fueled parties. You know, there are so many crazy stories that. So moving into a new house, I have of course been having my wizard battles with ants because it's also kind of in the middle of the woods, weirdly. And the guy who just came to, like, the exterminator guy who just came to get rid of my ants for me, because now we're being overwhelmed. He's some old dude who's been around this area forever, and like he ended up telling me like and 500,000 stories about Red Rocks because he's like worked there.
Oh wow!
So yeah, no, it's
quite local.
Sorry, what?
It's quite local for you all of a sudden.
Oh yeah, no, it's it's as I said, it's a legendary venue. So it's like playing there is pretty cool. Like you should definitely be looking forward to that.
Yeah, very much. We're all also prepping up our winter gear because October in the evening time might be a bit chill. But then we had some good excuses to fix up our attires. So
it's Colorado. You know, it could be a lot of different things. You know, there could be wildfires all over the place at that time.
Oh God!
Where do you live, Matthias? It's either snowing or on fire.
Yeah.
Like what's going on?
That's Colorado for you. Like literally, last year there was a weather forecast picture that showed like half of the state is on fire, the other part is like full of snow. That's
insane.
It's weird. Like we had our first snowfall on the 1st of September, I think.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, but then it gets hot again, you know.
And it's still snowing. You said it was snowing today.
Yeah, it's like a little bit of like snow and hail that came down, but that's because I'm so far up. Like down in Denver, it's gonna be nice and sunny, I'm sure. It usually is. But yeah, no, like mid-January, you can get sort of like a heat streak with like 70 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's around 22 degrees. Nice hot sun and that kind of stuff. So Colorado is schizophrenic when it comes to weather.
Wow.
So Maria, would you rather come back from such a long time off to such a big concert like Red Rocks, or would you rather ease into it maybe with a smaller one first?
No, you know what? We didn't ease into it on the first go as well. We went directly from nothing to Castlefest, which also had around 8,000 to 10,000 audiences live, and then a lot more online. So kind of this feels like a repetition in a way, like we're starting. We start again. What do you say that? How do you say that, Matthias?
We're starting up again.
We say we're starting up here, So it feels like it feels very right, and we're doing what we can to prepare ourselves, like we did the last time. Everyone's in boot camp, doing hard exercises, both physically and mentally, and practicing. Right now, we're hoping to bring some new stuff to stage. I guess I can shred the secret that I'm practicing 64 names for Valkyries these days.
Oh, hell yeah.
It's a challenge, but it's weird with Heilung's lyrics. It's like you think it's, oh God, this is impossible, I will never learn this, and then all of a sudden, poof, it's there, and then I'll never forget it again. So I'm pretty confident. But yeah,
please tell me that you're dunking Ruben daily in a bucket of ice water or something like that.
Well, he lives too far, man. He lives in Holland.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. No, but I'm sure he will get his beating. They're gonna have a warrior boot camp in a couple of weeks
to get them in shape.
Yeah.
Just make them help you build the next studio.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah.
Call it team building.
Call in the warriors. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, team building. Yeah.
It's a team building week. Building as a new studio.
Yes.
And renovating the house.
Yeah. Maybe chop the lawn and do some small stuff as well.
That's what I'd be doing. Like, you get to know each other whilst cleaning the dishes and doing my washing.
Exactly.
Matthias, I sent an article earlier. I don't know if you saw it about cats.
Yes.
I figured we may as well speak about something Viking related, seeing as the episode has been kind of all over the place, which is wonderful for me because I think it's brilliant just to kind of get to know you, Maria.
Thanks.
But I did send you an article about cats and how apparently Vikings kept cats as pets. And I wanted to know how true that was or how real it was. Or I had a quick read through the article and it seemed like maybe they were more just kept for fur, and whoever wrote the article really liked cats, so wanted to kind of twist it into them having pet cats. So yeah, what can you tell us about that?
So as far as I know, archaeologically we have evidence of cats, of course, in Scandinavia in the Viking Age. I seem to remember that they were used on ships too. And so that they did have an important role in that sense. I mean, any culture that has been keeping cats has usually been keeping cats because they catch all of those annoying little mice and everything else that goes into your food storage, right? So it makes sense that they would do that also on ships. That's so what I read the article and of course the things that stood out to me were immediately those that had to do with Nordic mythology. So as a standard, when somebody talks about cats in the Viking Age, they always have to mention Freya and that the wagon that she has that's like drawn by cats, which like I feel like I mentioned this very often, but like if anybody ever considers the situation of like Thor's wagon drawn by goats and Freya's wagon drawn by cats, do you like seriously consider that would work out? Like, come on. Like if you have What?
If the cats are huge, I don't know.
If the cats are huge, right? So if the cats are
Magic
tigers
cats,
or
obviously.
something like that.
Magic cats.
Magic cats, of course. Yeah. So no, so the only person to tell us that Freya's wagon is drawn by cats is Snorri Sturluson. And who is Snorri Sturluson aside from the king of bullshit when it comes to Nordic mythology? It's like, thanks for writing that material, Snorri. We're very happy that we have that available. We also know that you came up with so much garbage when you were writing that. And I fall along with the group of scholars who tend to believe that this little factoid about Freya's cats is completely made up by Snorri.
Oh, wow.
It seems like it's very much a sort of like an offshoot of perhaps knowing that there was the cult of the Magna Mater in the Mediterranean area, and she would be carried around in a wagon, at least depicted as such, in a wagon drawn by lions or something like that. And this sort of seems like kind of like a child's version of that, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, lions makes more sense.
Right? It sounds
much more cooler, like lions or tigers. But then like Mr. Whiskers pulling the chariot is just a little bit.
And we also know that they will be going in all kinds of directions if they're not like sitting around licking their ass or something like that.
No, because obviously you have to have like a stick with a piece of string and a fish hanging on the end in front of them, so they have to follow it.
So I can't stress this enough. Snorri puts so many jokes into his stories about Nordic mythology. He really did. There are so many jokes in there. We're not getting them today because we're so far removed from that landscape of irony that he was living in. Aside from that, I mean, we also tend to take this material much more seriously when we read it today because like religion. But
what if he's just the greatest troll to ever live? He is
a pretty big troll, actually.
Like he just made it all up, and then not all of it, but made up like.
He didn't make all of it up, but he did. There was a lot of things that he, either he came up with them or they were like, the type of folk tales that you would tell to children, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, the whole story about the ship of the dead is made of dead people's fingernails, right?
Don't take that away from me. That's one that they just so creepily weird.
Right after he says that, he says, and that's why you have to cut your fingernails. Like, come on.
Oh.
that's like something your mom could be telling you, right? To really freak you out, like and keep your hygiene level high. We know that is also a feature of folktales from Scandinavia. And especially in Eastern Scandinavia, in Finland, you have these folktales about how the devil collects people's fingernails to make this like ship of the dead. So there's
the opposite effect for me. Actually, I would make them grow if my mom said that your fingernails will be used for a ship when you die. That's so cool.
Well, there you are. Yeah, no, I mean, I probably would do the same and be like, yeah, hell yeah, that's metal.
I mean, what about toenails? Is he
well,
is he prejudiced against toenails? Do they
I'm not entirely sure if he was if he didn't care about toenails or what, but yeah.
But no, it don't seem like the best building material. All the most watertight, like this. I mean, there's a lot of small. Like, how are you going to get them together?
Well, so that's the thing, right? Because like it takes a lot of fingernails, right, to build an actual ship that can carry a bunch of monsters, right? That's so maybe part of the story is also that it that day when the apocalypse comes and Loki is steering a ship full of Jötnar towards us, that's going to be far into the future. That might be part of it too.
And you're saying two cats pulling a chariot is unbelievable.
Well, this is the thing. Like, all of this stuff is sort of like when you start thinking logically about this, is like somebody is like taking a piss here. Like somebody is having a lot of fun fucking
The
with
fingernail
us.
ship one has always been one to me that stood out as just being insane. Like it's just that one is just so wildly weird that I almost feel like has to have an element of truth to it because it's so weird.
Mm.
You know what? I have theorized in my own research that it's the original Nalfar is actually a sort of what do you call it? Like fuck, I'm forgetting the word. It's a feature of volcanic eruptions. So because the one thing that's like really weird is that in Iceland, they in the few sources that we have that talk about volcanic eruptions or have some kind of relationship to volcanic eruptions, boats seem to be a consistent feature because it's a fast moving object. There's even something to suggest that we see similar things in the Maori culture in New Zealand. And we also have the Holua sleds in Hawaii that are also weirdly associated with volcanic eruptions. So that's a much longer rant.
I guess lava is quite water-like when it's flowing down the mountain, and almost, I guess, if you do think that is the end of world, the bringer of death, that it would make sense that there would be a ship.
The word lava itself is derived from an Italian dialect word for washing. So the crossover between like the ideas of water and lava is actually pretty consistent throughout the world. But going back to Freya's cats, though, because then this article says something else about how cats were like venerated or something like that, and that's all nonsense. I can't remember exactly what the text was, but it's like they're weaving here, and I don't know where they got those stories from, but it's not an original part of Nordic mythology. Cats aren't particularly, prominent in Nordic mythology at all.
No, the article does make it sound like it's in there a lot. Yeah,
it's not. As you said, I think we're dealing with somebody who really likes cats.
The part that I kind of shut off at was when they were talking about fur, and then when they said about how they would kill the cat humanely, like that was shoehorned into it. Really, I found that really weird, and I was like, that was in there. It was like the cats might have been kept for the fur, but they killed humanely. And firstly, how the fuck do you know that?
Yeah,
like how would you know? You don't know that. But then they go on in the article to then say like, they found them with broken necks, and I'm like, what? So I started to get. That's why part of why I sent you it was like,
yeah.
Is there any truth in this?
We know that the cat skin was used, and there is the famous story about the Völva in Greenland in Eric the Red saga. I think her hat that's made of cat skin, or is it's the gloves. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So like, and that's of course like very special. And of course also, I mean, then there's the whole cat and witch complex that's like very, very early medieval stuff. That's always there as well. And that might be one of the reasons that Freya is associated with cats in Snorri Sturluson's mind. Because to him, she would be a witch more than anything else.
Okay. See, I was just hoping that the Earl had like a spinning chair and a cat on his lap, like a Bond villain. And like when you came in to ask him for something, he spun around with this big cat and he was stroking it, and he's like,
by all means, man.
Don't you come in here and ask me for land.
Yeah. Earl Hauken of Murder, definitely sitting there.
That's it. Yeah, like just like a Bond villain. And he just spins around and then blood eagle. There you go. Have that.
The cat just looking at.
You're staring menacingly.
Yeah.
That was like I said, I just found it a bit odd that they was angling for this, because it comes across as they're saying like every Viking had a pet cat, and it just like, well, maybe they had like a cat, like you say, that kept away the mice.
A couple of cats in the household. That makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it just seemed more, like I say, somebody who really liked cats.
Yes, but that's the thing. Like, you can also find, I'm sure that there are plenty of websites out there that tell you a lot of things about how the Vikings kept wolves or some other shit like that. It's usually somebody who really likes the fantasy of whichever animal they want to attach to Vikings and all that stuff. So,
There we go. Well, that answers that one then. Okay, no, I think we've covered quite a lot, although it might not be the most on-topic episode. I think people will enjoy just hearing about you, Maria, and your love for. I mean, I know for a doubt that there's some LARPers out there who also are Heilung fans that absolutely loved hearing the fact that you used to be a LARPer as well.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that there is a lot of Heilung listeners that do LARPing. When we see, especially in the US, people come in the most amazing attires and clearly know their way around the sewing machine. And yeah, that's usually a safe sign that they do other stuff as well. So yeah, here's to that.
Absolutely. Let's wrap this one up. Is there anything that you want to shout out, or I guess there's only so much you can say about the new music, and obviously I guess even where you guys are going to be playing, because I think it's so unsure at the minute
that
a lot of people won't.
Yeah, and I mean everything that seems safe enough, we are posting on our Facebook and Instagram, and so people can definitely keep an eye there. And it looks like it's gonna happen with a few gigs in August already, actually, a few festivals. But right now I can't remember which one of them went publicly, so I'm afraid of saying names.
No, I completely understand.
I had a horrible thing about the London show, actually, because it was Facebook did this new update thing, and I was going to plan a scheduled post for the day after when everyone was going to make it public that we were going to play there. And then Facebook did this fuck up of just posting, pre-posting that post like 50 times on our wall. And I have to sit manually and delete.
Oh no!
Or we have to. So yeah, it's always a hassle with this stuff. But yeah, I'm.
Did you schedule it wrong and then you just had to tell Chris that Facebook fucked up?
No.
Chris, it was Facebook. Honestly, I don't know what happened.
Stupid Facebook.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Oh god. Yeah, no, but really hoping to be able to be out soon and see people in the eyes and.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I say, I haven't had the pleasure to see you guys yet, so I'm definitely going to make the journey to London and hopefully come and say hello in person.
Yes, we would. Yeah, that would be lovely. Let's do that.
Absolutely.
And thank you so much again for having me on this great podcast. And,
thank you. Thank you for spending the time. We need to organize to have Chris on as well and get nerdy about sound.
Yeah, if you have an hour to talk about, he can go deep. Yeah, you can really test your sound abilities there.
I will go completely over my head, but I'm sure there will be people listening that will enjoy it.
Yeah, and I think also there's been a lot of. I mean, he knows so much interesting stuff about sound, and I've been pushing him for ages to do something like a YouTube or something, just sharing a bit of his knowledge. So I would for sure be happy if he.
Yeah. No, we will organize to have him on for an episode.
Yeah, sounds good. I'll be listening.
Yeah, for sure. Matthias, anything you want to plug?
Yeah, I want to tell everybody not to send me Facebook requests anymore. I keep getting so many friend requests on Facebook.
Send him friend requests. Secretly, anybody listening to this can't see he's winking.
Follow me on Instagram instead.
Secretly, he wants more friend requests.
No, I want to get rid of Facebook. I hate it. I hate that platform so much.
Matthias Nordvig. Facebook. Do it.
I'm gonna change my name to Lord Pupperton instead.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, change the spelling and they will never find you.
Yeah. Well, no, yeah. You can always find me on the various Instagram and Facebook places and all that stuff. And yeah, and now I'll give it over to you
to do the rest. There
to
we
do the
go.
rest.
That's it. Now, if you enjoy the show, please leave us a 5-star rating and a positive review. It, like I say, helps people find the show. You can follow us at Nordic Mythology Podcast on Facebook, Instagram. The website is nordicmythologypodcast.com. We're really trying to push the YouTube subscribers. So if you get a minute, please just pop over onto YouTube, just hit subscribe. It's going to help us bump up. We're going to start releasing a bunch of short, sort of 2-3 minute videos of the episodes, sort of sound bites. So you get like the best parts of it, I guess. And then if you want to follow us a little bit more, Patreon's the best way. At any tier level, you get access to watch the live shows. You get to join in our little live chat we have going on during the show. Seems to be a lot of dick jokes in there recently. You get to pop your questions in there that we will put to the guest.
It's been since you said the dictionary thing. And
that was your pronunciation of dictionary. That was
I'm
not
foreign,
me.
Man. I'm foreign.
That's not an excuse. You just pronounced that really weirdly. Twice. Twice in a row. The first time I thought you did it on purpose and it was just an accident. And then the second time was just, I couldn't ignore it anymore. I was like, look, I gave you one for free. Second one, I'm calling you on it.
That is so ridiculous.
So there we go. It always falls into smut, doesn't it? Every week.
Someone is asking in the chat if there's an exclusive tier for just the dick jokes on Patreon.
Or maybe, yes, $69 a month. Obviously. Oh, how childish. All right. Thank you very much for everyone for listening. It was fun as always. Oh, last thing, if you follow us on Patreon, any level, you get access to the Vikings Watch Along show that me and Matthias do straight after the main show every week. We sit down, watch an episode of Vikings, let you know our opinions. And yeah, it's good fun. It's lighthearted. Usually I have a drink. Matthias can't. But it's it's good fun. We have a laugh.
I can.
But you can, but it's like 11 o'clock there.
Yeah, no, it's it's a little early in the day for that. Get a good day drunk on and
that's it. Yeah, exactly. Maria, thank you very much. It was fun as always.
Thank you so much. Have a good night and day, everyone.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.